This is the story of Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general who marched elephants across the Alps and brought Rome to its knees, yet never marched on Rome itself. His victories were so complete that Roman mothers whispered his name to frighten their children, and still, at the moment when the Republic trembled most, he turned away. The question has lingered for centuries, sharp and unfinished. Why did Hannibal not take the city he seemed born to destroy? Hannibal was raised in the shadow of humiliation. Carthage had lost the First Punic War to Rome, and the terms were bitter. As a child, he stood beside his father Hannibal Barca and swore an oath of eternal hatred against Rome. It was a promise spoken over sacrifice and smoke, and it shaped his entire life. Yet hatred alone does not explain restraint. A man who crosses mountains with elephants does not frighten easily. When he left Iberia and began his march toward Italy, he did not choose the obvious route. He led tens of thousands through hostile tribes and into the frozen passes of the Alps. Men slipped from cliffs, animals froze where they stood, entire units vanished into snow and rock. By the time he descended into the Po Valley, he had lost nearly half his army. What remained was hardened, desperate, and loyal to him alone. Rome did not believe he would survive the mountains. Then news arrived that he had. The Roman legions marched north, confident in their numbers and discipline. At the river Trebia, Hannibal lured them into icy waters and into a trap of hidden soldiers. The legions were cut apart. Rome staggered, but Rome did not fall. The next year at Lake Trasimene, Hannibal set an ambush in thick morning fog. Roman soldiers advanced along a narrow path between hills and water, unaware that an entire army waited above them. When the signal came, Carthaginian troops poured down the slopes. Thousands of Romans died without forming ranks. It was one of the most complete ambushes in history. Panic spread through Rome. A dictator was appointed, Fabius Maximus, who refused open battle and shadowed Hannibal instead. He burned crops ahead of him and avoided confrontation. The Roman people grew restless, demanding decisive action. Hannibal roamed the countryside almost freely, testing Roman patience like a hunter circling wounded prey. Then came Cannae. On a hot August day in 216 BCE, Rome sent a massive army to crush him. Hannibal positioned his forces in a crescent shape, weaker troops in the center, stronger veterans on the flanks. As the Romans pushed forward, believing the center was collapsing, they walked into an encirclement. The Carthaginian wings closed around them. By the end of that day, tens of thousands of Roman soldiers lay dead. Senators, consuls, veterans, boys barely grown into armor. The scale of slaughter stunned the ancient world. Survivors fled back to Rome with horror in their voices. Never had the Republic suffered such a defeat. And yet, the gates of Rome remained closed, not battered by Carthaginian siege engines. Hannibal did not march directly on the city. Instead, he moved south, seeking alliances with Rome's Italian allies. Some cities defected. Others stayed loyal. The question began even then, whispered among his own officers. One of his commanders, Hannibal, reportedly urged him to strike immediately. According to later accounts, he told Hannibal that he knew how to win victories but not how to use them. Whether those exact words were spoken remains uncertain, but the sentiment endured. Hannibal paused, and Rome breathed. Some argue that Hannibal lacked siege equipment. His army had been built for maneuver and shock, not prolonged assaults. Rome's walls were formidable, and the city still had defenders. Yet Hannibal had achieved the unimaginable at Cannae. Rome's manpower was shattered. Fear hung over the capital like smoke. Others suggest he waited for reinforcements from Carthage. He had written for support, for men and supplies that never fully arrived. Carthage hesitated, divided by politics and distant from the war's front. Was Hannibal abandoned by his own city, forced into caution by promises never kept? There is also the possibility that Hannibal misjudged Rome itself. He had shattered Roman armies, but he may have believed that Rome's allies would collapse more quickly than they did. Instead, the core of the Republic held firm. Even after Cannae, Rome refused to negotiate. It raised new legions from boys and old men. Hannibal moved through Italy for years, undefeated in open battle. He defeated consuls and scattered armies, but he never forced Rome into submission. He camped within sight of the city at one point, riding close enough that citizens could see his cavalry. Still, he did not attack. Roman resilience grew stronger with time. Fabius' strategy of delay returned. Commanders avoided direct confrontation, harassed Hannibal's supply lines, and refused to give him another decisive victory. The war stretched on, no longer a single dramatic arc but a grinding test of endurance. Meanwhile, Rome struck at Carthage holdings in Spain. A young Roman commander named Scipio emerged, bold and patient. He cut off Carthaginian resources and shifted the war center away from Italy. Hannibal, still in Italy, could only watch as the foundations of his campaign weakened far from his sight. Years passed. Italian allies who had once joined him wavered. Supplies grew thin. The elephants were long gone. The grand vision of isolating Rome through rebellion did not unfold as he had hoped. Still, the memory of Cannae lingered. The city he had spared still stood. Eventually, Hannibal was recalled to Africa to defend Carthage itself. The war he had brought to Italy was coming home. At the Battle of Zama, he faced Scipio in open battle. This time, the Roman commander anticipated his tactics. Hannibal was defeated. The terms imposed on Carthage were crushing. Its fleet was surrendered, its territories reduced, its independence crippled. Hannibal returned to public life as a statesman, attempting reforms to strengthen his city's finances. Rome watched him closely, suspicious even in peace. Under pressure from Rome, Hannibal went into exile. He traveled through foreign courts, advising kings who feared Roman expansion. Even in distant lands, his name carried weight. Yet he was a man without a homeland, the architect of Rome's terror now pursued by Roman demands. In his final years, Roman envoys sought him again. Rather than be captured, he took poison, ending his life on his own terms. His body was buried far from Carthage, far from the Alps he had crossed in youth. Rome survived him, stronger than ever. But the mystery that clings to his legacy does not lie in his death. It lies in that narrow window after Cannae, when Rome trembled and Hannibal stood victorious. He had done what no foreign general had ever done. He had annihilated a Roman army. If he had marched immediately on Rome, would the city have fallen? Some believe it would have resisted fiercely, that his exhausted troops could not have breached its defenses. Others believe panic might have undone the Republic from within. The answer slipped away with time. Ancient accounts conflict. Some portray Hannibal as cautious, calculating the risks and finding them too great. Others hint at hesitation, perhaps even doubt. Was there a moment of uncertainty after years of relentless motion, a pause that altered history? There is also the question of ambition. Did Hannibal truly aim to destroy Rome, or to weaken it enough to restore balance between the two powers? His oath as a child speaks of hatred, but hatred does not always dictate strategy. Perhaps his goal was never the city itself. Carthage's politics may have bound his hands. Factions at home distrusted the Barcid family. Supplies were debated, delayed, or denied. If Hannibal lacked the tools to besiege Rome, the fault might lie across the sea. Yet he remained the man on the ground, making the final choice. Rome's refusal to surrender added another layer. Even after catastrophic losses, it executed generals for cowardice and forbade talk of peace. The Senate projected confidence even when fear stalked its streets. Hannibal faced not just walls, but a society unwilling to break. Still, he had surprised Rome before. He had done what experts claimed impossible. The Alps had not stopped him. Roman legions had not stopped him. Why should walls and dwindling defenders have stopped him at that moment of supreme advantage? Some have imagined that Hannibal, standing on Italian soil after Cannae, saw the limits of conquest, that he recognized Rome's depth, its reserves of men and will, and understood that even a captured city might not end the war. If so, it was a calculation made in silence. Yet silence is all that remains. No detailed explanation from Hannibal survives. No confession of doubt, no admission of constraint. Only later historians, writing decades or centuries afterward, attempting to reconstruct the thoughts of a man long gone. The ground where Cannae was fought still holds the memory of that day. The fields near Rome where he camped no longer echo with hoofbeats, but the gap between victory and decision remains, a narrow space where history might have turned. Hannibal Barca stands as one of the greatest commanders the ancient world produced. He defeated Rome repeatedly, and still Rome endured. His brilliance is unquestioned. His restraint, or his limitation, remains a shadow. In that shadow lies the question that refuses to fade. When Rome lay bleeding and vulnerable, when the path to its gate seemed open, what stayed the hand of the man who had sworn to hate it forever?